everyone knows money, and everyone probably likes money. That's a fact of life. So now basically, and economics is a subject that helps you to deal with and understand how money flows in an economy. So an economy is basically like a country, a state, a sovereign or maybe non-sovereign region. And now in modern days, in our time now, economics is a very important subject because money is very important in our economy. Money is very important because money has different forms, and now more than ever, money is becoming much more sine qua non to our environment and to our growth in our economy. Now that's why I want to give you an introduction to what economics is, just in case you don't have a sufficient one in previous time, and basically to supplement whatever knowledge you have had already. So basically, what is economics? Now none of those erudite, none of those wonderful intelligentsia in the past have been able to sufficiently describe economics, and that shows that economics is a very wide subject. It's very difficult to wield, and the concept of economics is rather kind of unwieldy. But still, many of our bright and smart economists have been able to come up with several definitions of economics. For example, Adam Smith. Let me give you Adam Smith's definition of economics. Adam Smith, who is seen as the father of economics, described economics as an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. So he says economics is an inquiry, and basically an inquiry is just like an investigation, like a research, like a curiosity. So Adam Smith thinks economics is a curiosity into the nature and wealth of our nation. So basically, Adam Smith looks at economics as a way of checking out, to research, to look at it, to analyze how the nations of the countries or the countries of nations are able to generate and distribute their wealth. So also we have Alfred Marshall's definition, who described economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. So basically, Alfred Marshall sees economics as it's a subject that just talks about business, buy and sell, trade, commerce, and all the rest, and it's called as an ordinary business of life. So that is different personalities, different people have their different definitions of economics. We also have John Stuart Mill define economics as the practical science of the production and distribution of wealth. So John Stuart Mill sees economics as a practical. That means it is like something you can easily experience. It is experiential. It's something that is the practical science of production and distribution of wealth. Now that is simple enough to understand. We also have H.J. Davenport, who see economics as the science that treats phenomena from the standpoint of price. So what is H.J. Davenport now goes a step further and says that okay, economics is not just trade. Economics is not just buying and selling, but then economics is like a subject that talks about our trade from the standpoint when we are talking about price. So and then from there we can also talk about demand and supply. So and then I've talked in a previous video of this channel, I've talked about demand and supply. But today I just specifically want to talk about economics, because economics, you need to have a background and an explanation and an understanding of what economics actually is. So now let's move on. Basically we have A.C. Pigou. A.C. Pigou's definition of economics. It says economics is the science of material welfare. So and then this definition is kind of simple enough, though it's a little bit misleading, because now A.C. Pigou is kind of leading us away from money and talking about material. And material can be anything. But now A.C. Pigou is trying to extrapolate. It's trying to make us reason as inductive scientists. It's trying to talk about the fact that economics is not just about money, but talks about much wider things than money. And when we talk about materials, materials include money. So A.C. Pigou, we can say A.C. Pigou is like a generalizing economics. It's an economist that tries to look at economics. It's an economist that is trying to look at economics with a kind of general overview. So now then we have Professor Leonardo Robins, and this is the economist that define economics in a way that we accept and appreciate today. And then he defined economics as the science which studies behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. And then let me break this definition down. So Leonardo Robins now looked at it. He now said, okay, let me just combine everybody's definition together, and let me look at it, and let me put something that can cover everything and also make people understand better. So and then it says that economics is a science economics is a social science. It doesn't just call it a science, it calls it a social science, because economics is a science that is related to anthropology, and that anthropology deals with the study of human beings. And so economics as a social science also studies human beings. And then when we talk about human beings, we also talk about money, because money was brought about by human beings. And then that's why I said economics is a study of human beings. And then when you talk about human beings always have wants, and human beings have desires. So that's why Leonardo Robins says economics is a science that studies human behavior. So it doesn't just say social science, it says social science that studies human behavior, because human behavior is also social. So and then we'll talk about as a relationship between earned and scarce means, which have alternative means. So earned are basically ends are the wants. Ends are what we want to use our money to buy. While your scarce means are like your money. Ends, scarce means are like your investments. Scarce means are like your profits, like your capital, what you earn, what you have. But ends are like what you want to use, what you earn to buy. So you understand? Economics is very simple. As long as you are human beings, as long as you spend, as long as you take in money, as long as you buy and sell, and every one of us buy and sell. So I believe that economics is a study that is totally easy to understand. So now let's move on to the next section of the video. I will talking about the 5 major concepts of economics, and those 5 major concepts you have to put it in mind in your study of economics. No matter where you are studying economics, whether you are in secondary school, you are in high school, or you are in university, wherever you are studying economics, those 5 principles, those 5 concepts of economics, they are the ones that you are going to build on to get in the future, to in order to understand economics and be able to look at it from your own perspective. Now these 5 principles are wants, scarcity, scale of preference, choice, and opportunity cost. So again, we have wants, scarcity, scale of preference, choice, and opportunity cost. Now wants are basically known as ends, and wants are basically what you want to use your money to buy. So and a want is basically the insatiable desire or need by human beings to own goods or services. So what we talk about wants, we talk about the desire that human beings have. So human beings want to own goods and services. That's what's called want. What you want is what you want to have, and what you want to have is what you want to use your money to buy. And economics is basically a study of money. So that's why economics is basically a study of wants. Now then we have scarcity. Scarcity is also related to scarce means. And when we talk about scarce means in economics, we are talking about the fact that those scarce means, they are your resources, they are the things, just like your money, your investment, your capital. Those things are scarce. Those things are in limited quantity. That's why you see, that's why people work. And even things are not scarce, nobody would be working. Everyone would just have money to eat anyhow, and nobody would work for money. But then economics has noted that in general, resources and our means are always scarce. So and those means are the things that we use to satisfy our wants. So and they are always scarce. That's a general hypothesis and a theory in economics. So it's always accounted for in all economic theories. Then we have scale of preference, and scale of preference is basically when you rank your desires, all those your wants, when you rank them in order. For example, now if I had 10,000 now, and I wanted, and that 10,000 I could either use it to buy a bicycle, or I could use it to buy a let's say I could either use it to buy a bicycle, or I could buy, let's say, what else could I buy? I could buy some clothes. So now I will look at my life and say, okay, what do I need? I have clothes already, right? But I lack bicycle, and bicycle, if I have a bicycle, it will help me to transport myself to school. It will help me to achieve much more things. It will give me recreation. It will help me to do exercise. And so when I rank my priorities, I will know that this is what I want, and I don't want the less one. So I will rank my priorities, and that ranking of priorities is known as a scale of preference, and that's the third concept in economics. And then we have choice, and choice is basically the fact that choice is linked to the fact that since our means are scarce, so you always have to make a choice. Because now you can see that from what I talked about earlier, I talked about buying a bicycle and buying clothes. Now had it been resources were not scarce and we could buy everything we want, there won't be anything like scale of preference. But in life, things are always scarce. That's a fact, because there's always pressure on our resources. So that's why we always have to make some choice. We always have to let go of some things, and then those things we let go are known as our opportunity cost. And then that leads me to the last basic concept of economics. Opportunity cost is basically the expression of cost in terms of foregone alternative. So when you talk about opportunity cost, it's basically what you have let go of in order to buy something. Now, before we round up this video, let me talk about opportunity cost and give you a little bit of table. I imagine I have my scale of preference, and then I have bicycle and then I have bicycle. Now the reason why I put bicycle first is because it comes first on my priority. Then last on my priority, or second or last, is also clothes. Now each of this is 10,000. 10,000 naira. Now if I eventually buy the bicycle, now my bicycle will be my true cost, will be my money cost. But then if I don't buy the clothes, that my clothes will be my opportunity cost. Why? Because it is the alternative I have forgone. It's the alternative I have waived. I've said, okay, I will let this one go because resources are scarce, because I don't have the money to buy books, so I have to make a choice, and because I have to have an opportunity cost. So, and in summary, economics is basically a social science that studies human behavior in terms of wants and our scarce resources, which have alternative uses. And because of the alternative uses, that's why we have what we call opportunity cost. They also talk about the 5 basic concepts of economics, which are want, scale of preference, scarcity, opportunity cost, and choice. So